Hi guys, once again, welcome back to the channel. We have watched yet another film at our movie theater, and we are going to give you yet another movie review that you may or may not watch. But we continue to trudge on in this world.
It's okay, we're critics, we hate ourselves. Alright, go ahead.
Okay. Today's film was none other than the Mind Trip, known as Asteroid City by
Also
Wes Anderson.
known as the Acid Trip.
Acid Trip City.
Acid Trip City.
So yeah, that was the film that we saw this week. So without further ado, DJ, 1 to 10, how would you rate this film?
That's tough. I'm gonna give it an 8.
Okay, why?
I want to give it a low score, but the problem is cinematography. The cinematography is excellent. The transitions are excellent. The style is actually really cool. I really enjoy the acting is amazing. Mm-hmm. There's actually a few moments where it comes off stiff, but it's done stiff on purpose, and you can tell, and that's actually what I liked about it. When the acting is stiff, you can tell it's on purpose. They make it very clear that it's on purpose. It's everything's solid, and even the story around the actual film part is actually really good. The part that bothered me was the interjections that happen in it. There's moments throughout the film where they switch themes, and it's hard to explain. We'll get more into spoilers, but it's scene swaps, and when it does that, it gets a little grainy sometimes. But other than that, I kind of enjoy. It feels like an art film,
Yeah.
but it's not boring through most of it. There was a small part towards the end where it got a little boring, but I kind of enjoyed it.
Okay, that's fair. If I was judging it based off of like art style and things like that, direction and typical things that, like just looking at it as a critic, I would agree with the 8 score. It is very well done. It's very heavily stylized, but that's just the style of Wes Anderson. That's how he does all of his films. It's a very iconic way of doing things, and he sticks to his style, and he knows how to do it, and he knows how to do it well. The actors do a very great job. The humor's pretty good. The story is the only issue I have with the film, but if I'm going to talk just like overall like audience coming into it, unbiased, are people going to enjoy this? I'm going to say it's about a 50-50 if you're going to enjoy it a lot or if you're going to be a little bit confused and bored. So I think as an audience score, I would give it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, this one's hard. Yeah, I was going to say, like, this one almost deserves a critical score and an audience score.
Yeah.
Because critically, the film is pretty solid, but from an audience standpoint, most people aren't really going to enjoy this film.
Yeah.
I would give it a 4 audience and an 8 as a critic.
That is absolutely fair, and it is just one of those things where it is a film that, as I said, it leans into Wes Anderson's style, and if you like Wes Anderson's style, you're going to absolutely love this film.
This feels like one of those films that's going to get like a really high critical score and a really low audience score.
Yeah.
Because critically, it's actually a well-made film. It's just not very entertaining for most people, I think.
The film has its issues, and the thing is that I think that it is a very enjoyable film, but it's more of one of those things of if you're going into it as an art form, not necessarily just an entertainment medium. The humor is very good. The visual gags are pretty well done. Visually, the thing's very well put together.
It's very actually pretty, despite the fact that it's like a single set. It's really pretty. Like, they do a really good job of using what little they have to a great extent.
Yeah, but the issue that I had with it as a fan, or as just like a moviegoer, is when it gets confusing, it gets trippy confusing. When it's on point, it is on point. It's very good humor, and the thing is that you have to watch the entire screen because sometimes the thing that's funny is happening in the background, and you might not realize it because the focus of the shot is in the middle, but the gag in the background is also still in focus. It's one of those films where I think that if you're going to go into it expecting it to be kind of artsy, you're going to really enjoy it. But if you're going into it just for like a popcorn flick, you're not going to enjoy it as much.
This is not a popcorn flick. This is an art film.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll go ahead and we'll just get into spoilers here and talk about the specific parts that we like about the film, maybe some of the specific parts that we didn't necessarily care for, but honestly, I can't give a recommendation to go to the movie theater to see this. I mean, I don't want to see films fail necessarily in the box office, and people have to go to these things in the box office for the films to succeed, but unless you want to go to the movie theater specifically to see an artsy film, maybe pick one of the other films that have come out recently.
This feels more like a cult classic than it does a actually like mainline film.
Yeah. It just kind of felt like a fun project that all the actors signed up on, and it is a fun project. It's fun. It's a funny film. It's just when it's dry, it's bone dry.
Yeah.
So anyway, spoilers. Best part of this film was the alien.
Literally the best part.
When the alien shows up, it's absolutely the best part.
So funny. It's physical humor. It's literally a motion gag where you do the whole sneaky thing, like you're being watched by people and you're like looking around like, just doing a thing here, don't mind me, bye.
And then he poses for a picture. Like that whole scene was funny because everything just stops and it's super silent, and you'd expect like some noise from the ship and stuff, but they played it really well with it being silent and the alien just slowly descending on like a stick, and he's just looking around the entire time like, are they going to do something? Are they going to, and then it's got these big old eyes, so it really emphasizes that he's like, it's a very good visual gag, and it's probably like the only actual part that's animated. It looks kind of claymation-y. I don't know exactly how they did it, but it works very, very well with this film.
It was hilarious.
It was hilarious. That part was funny.
Okay, the humor in this film is there's two types of humor in it. There's background humor and there's front-facing humor, but it's all dry, like physical comedy or like it's all gag comedy. But it's hilarious when it's in the front round.
Yeah.
When it's in the background, if you're not paying attention, you'll miss it. But there's tons of moments in the film where there's stuff going on back, and there's a point where the grandfather's talking, and they're just standing there silent, and there's a guy in the background just like, he was playing golf, and he's just sitting there holding the flag for, like, not moving and like trying not to fall over. And it's just stuff like that. Like, there's these silly little background gags. There's just kind of real over the top, crazy, silly stuff. Some of the humor is dark or misdirected humor. It's like the Napoleon Dynamite style, where it's like just very dry. The comedy is situational, or what's going on with the characters. And some of it is very on the nose.
Yep.
There were a lot of moments where people laughed out loud in the theater. There were other moments where you heard a little giggling, where people may have noticed something was going on in the background. There's a lot of times where I just kind of laughed internally because I saw little things that I felt was silly, but it wasn't enough to quite get me to burst out into laughter.
Yeah, like some of the stuff was really good. Anytime that it was just like upfront with the humor was really funny. But the other thing is that if you're not paying attention, you don't understand something that actually happened that was really funny. Like, for instance, the general has a speech, and the speech in and of itself is hilarious because he literally is like, I was torn apart, I had my eyeballs gouged out figuratively and literally, and he has both of his eyes. And he's like, he has his limbs popped off and all these things, and he goes, end of chapter 2, and then he goes on a rant before he starts chapter 3. So it's that kind of humor where it's like, if you're paying attention to it, it's really funny.
That was really funny.
But if you're not like paying super duper close attention, something will go over your head, because he'll just start chapter 3 and you're like, but didn't he say end of chapter 2 like 30-40 seconds ago? That was the joke, is he literally just went on a ramble. He stepped away from the microphone. It wasn't part of the speech. And he went on a little ramble, and then he came back.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
All the actors are really good. They have very great line delivery. The visual gags are funny. And all the stuff in the background was really well done. I like all the written humor, where it's just, you have to read the sign really quick, because the fact that there's a sign at all is hilarious. Like the fact that he's selling land for this middle of nowhere town, and the way that he's doing it is a scam. He's not selling you plots of land, he's selling you a loan for 50 years, and you're paying him for 50 years for not a big plot of land. It's like big enough to put a little cabin on, and you can't build anything on it. That was the gag. Is he literally is selling it for, and you're like, oh, $10, $25, $10 in quarters. That's not ridiculous. But then it goes on and explains it more. It's like, oh my gosh, he's literally just selling useless pieces of land. And he is making it a loan for 50 years. So they're continuously paying him for the next 50 years $10 in quarters. So it's things like that, the stuff that happens in the background, and also like if a character says something that seems a little off, eventually it's like explained later. But you have to kind of remember that they said the off thing.
Yeah. The problem I had with this film was the cutaways. The first one, the setup was actually really interesting, where they set it up as a play, and then they go into it. But then they keep cutting away, and some of them are interesting, and some of them are kind of boring, and some of them are annoying, and some of them are just weird. Like, they're all over the place. There's no consistency between them, and it keeps taking me. The film, they keep using it as like segues between the acts, and it's like, I don't know. I don't know why it's in there, other than just for like some of it's really funny, but I feel like the film would be better without the cutaways in the middle. If they had the one at the beginning, the one at the end, and just left the rest out.
Yeah.
Because they're just weird, and some of them detract so much from what's going on.
Yeah, and the thing is that the film tries to act like it's speaking to something, but then at the end of it, they point out the fact that it's literally speaking to nothing. Like, it's not actually a thing.
Yep.
And then it gets this really weird, like, almost horror-esque ending. Like, if you think about it, it was very unsettling. When the alien shows up again and they're all chanting, you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. Mm-hmm. That was just kind of an odd, it didn't really seem to fit in with the rest of the film. It's one of those things where it tried to seem deep and meaningful, and I actually really hate it when films do that. It seems really pretentious. Like 2001: A Space Odyssey, for instance. That's kind of the vibes you get at the end of it.
Actually, yeah, that's a really good comparison to this film.
Because
that one was like more of a serious, like, it's a very dead film where it's very empty.
2001: A Space Odyssey is probably one of the most overrated films I've ever seen. It is absolutely boring.
It is,
and it has no meaning.
It is incredibly pretentious.
It is the most pretentious film I've ever seen.
I
don't like those. I don't like films that are just pretentious for the sake of pretentious sake. And unfortunately, this film kind of lost me at the end when literally they point out that the story doesn't really have a meaning because all the directors and all the actors have their own personal interpretations that they're putting into their characters, and the writer is dead and he can't explain what he was trying to get at. And then they say you can't wake up if you don't fall asleep, and that's supposed to be like the mantra of the film, but none of the movie had anything to do with the characters really falling asleep and waking up. It's kind of odd.
I think it was directed at the audience, but my problem with it is that it's actually really interesting and entertaining when it's going through the character arcs. Those cutaways detract from it, and then the ending just kind of removes any kind of closure or clarity to what's going on.
Yeah. So at the end of the film, it almost felt kind of like a waste, but it was enjoyable enough. Like, that's part of the reason that it's like critically, it's a great film. It's just a thing of audience-wise, it's...
Well, my problem is the whole time we're watching this is like they keep talking about the play that they're putting on. I was like, I just want to watch the play. That's more interesting than what you guys are talking about. Get back to the play. Like, the play is interesting. The Asteroid City play is really fun and interesting. Mm-hmm. And they keep going to the... It's like they didn't know how to fill in the parts, so they just talked about the people writing the parts. And they do these speeches out of order. So they'll do... They did like the auditioning of the main character and had him say a line that's not in the play because they skipped that part of the play and then have him do it outside of the play.
Yeah.
And I was like, just do the... It would have been more fun in the play, I think. I don't know. It's just...
Or the scene where she's on the train. Like, it's a cool visual gag, like literally seeing him run after the train. like it was an interesting set piece, and it moved pretty well, and it was shot very well. But the thing is that it doesn't really feel right, because it's literally Scarlett Johansson talking to the director through the extra who's been playing the part the entire time, and she's also been playing the part the entire time. So it's like, well, obviously she's not leaving the project, because we're watching her in the project, and they're not going to change her halfway through.
Yeah, that was kind of my problem with it. Is like none of it matters to the story. That's not true. Some of it does. The scene where he goes out and meets his wife, across the balcony, that was a really good scene, because it gave credence to those characters and why that wasn't there, and it actually matters to the story. But the train scene doesn't. And so that's my confusion, is like some of these scenes make a lot of sense to it and some don't, and I don't know why they're in there.
Yeah, it's like 3 levels of meta. Because the thing is that the film's filmed on 3 levels. The play as it would appear.
Yep.
To people living it. The play being put on, and the director. And then the 3rd level is the host of the TV show,
right, who's like
on the documentary of the writing and the creating of the play.
Yep.
So it's like meta on 3 levels, but the problem is that 2 of the levels are in black and white. They don't differentiate style too much. And then
the narrator moments are actually really interesting.
Yeah.
When the narrator's narrating, it's actually really interesting.
Yeah.
But then if he had just narrated the scene of what happened and then moved back to the thing, but they go on to like embellish it, and that I just didn't feel that was necessary. The narrator was hilarious and fun and entertaining.
No,
and his take of the scene where he shows up in the play. Oh, I'm not supposed to be here.
That was funny.
That was really funny.
Because he's full in color and everything. So literally the actors are just doing the scene like it's real. And then one of them just stops and goes, "Who the hell are you?" And everybody's like, What do you mean? And then it pans over and it's the host. He's just standing there. He's like, "Oh, I'm not supposed to be here." And he like leaves. Like, that was a great shot.
That was funny.
Like, the humor in this is so good, and that's the thing, is like, when the humor's really good, it's good, but when it's not,
it's really dry when it's not funny.
It is a very, very dry film, and it's one of those films that I think it's supposed to make you think. It's supposed to try to give a meaning to it that isn't expressly written in it, and it's a little bit pretentious, and it's supposed to be kind of artsy, but it just doesn't land very well, because I think that if you're really going to try to teach a lesson, you can't come at the audience like you know everything and you are better than them.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah,
that was the issue with 2001: Space Odyssey, is it has so many wide, various interpretations and philosophical questions and stuff, because Stanley Kubrick thought he was a genius, so he didn't tell you anything. And then when people were like, "Well, what's the meaning of the movie?" he literally was just like, "Well, it has a specific meaning, but it's very clear in my film." I hate that film.
I noticed. All right, Sean, close this.
All right, anyway, rants aside, this is a fun film. It has really good scenes in it, but the thing is that it's kind of suffers from the syndrome of it'll look great on TikTok and YouTube.
This is
in clips.
This is one that will be clipped to death, and this is one I think that will be really good to like sit down as a fun little like a group of friends to just like chill out and watch like on the TV at home. Yeah. And just enjoy as a group and just like kind of goof around and make fun of a little bit.
Yeah, this isn't really one of those films that you can enjoy by yourself, but at the same time, like DJ said, this film's probably more enjoyable if you're with a group of friends where you can pause the film and talk about it with a group of people. At the theater, like, yeah, you could laugh and you had the gag and the interaction with the audience and stuff, but you weren't able to, like...
This is a piece to dissect rather than to watch.
Yeah, it's good. It was well done, but it's not great for in-theater watching. Yeah. So I suspect it's not going to do well in the box office, unfortunately. That makes 2 weeks in a row where the box office is not done super well, which is concerning, but we shall see if they will recover in the end of June and heading into July. Speaking of heading June and into July, what films would you like us to see and review for you, and give our honest feedback and help you to make better decisions on going to the movie theater? I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you do, please push the like button, comment, let us know what you thought about our review or about this film if you went to go see it yourself, and be sure to share us, not just with your friends, but with your family as well. And you can follow us on Facebook, Entertainment Rebooted, and at Twitter at Exposition Sickle. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next video.
Thanks for watching.